Working Dragon Mystic, where we discuss real metaphysical and occult knowledge so that you can manifest real and tangible results in your life. Today, we're going to continue our series on the Goetia with the 26th spirit of the Goetia Bune. And I know a lot of you have been waiting for this one. All right. So before we get into that, remember, if you're new to the channel and you like occult content, discussions, live streams, and the like, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications by clicking that bell. You got to turn those on now. For some reason, they made that change. So if we don't turn them on, you may not be notified. And you want to be notified anytime we release a new video. We release videos every week, as well as a live stream where we sit and chat and do a Q&A with our listeners and our viewers. It's a lot of fun. Join us on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that. And if you're interested in going deeper into certain topics, we do have an online school at workingdragonmystic.com where you can click. We have online courses, full video courses, lifetime access, including all the updates if there ever is one for Dragon Magic, meditation, tarot reading, even a course that will help you develop your arcane senses. All right. Oh, there's also a link for merch if you want to. Working Dragon Mystic coffee cup, also a good way to support us. And coffee's good. Now, on to the topic, right? All right. I gotta admit, Bune is one of the entities in the Goetia that since we started this series, I've been getting a lot of requests for this particular one, which I find interesting because normally when I talk to people throughout the years in my research, Bune doesn't tend to pop up in those discussions a lot. So it's really cool for me to start seeing a new entity popping up in general conversation and request. I love to see those kinds of changes. I love to see new people interested in things because you get to a point where things kind of just feel redone. Everybody's just asking about the same entity because it's just this entity. It's popular, it gets a little cliche and a little boring. And I always love to talk about new entities, new things. I don't want to just redo the same thing over and over. I get bored. That's what I do. So it excites me for that. And I'm a dork, so deal with it. All right. Now, in the Goetia, Bune's appearance, how is he traditionally described? Well, in all honesty, he's described as a great dragon with 3 heads, one of a dog, one of a man, and one of a griffin. Pretty freaking wild, right? Now, interestingly, this is one where I've never seen Bune appear as a great dragon. Never have. I've seen him appear with a feathered cloak. I've seen him appeared with a scaled cloak. I've seen him appear with a dog at his side. I've seen him appear with like imagery of canines on his garb. Never seen the dog head per se, nor the dragon head or griffin head. But largely, I have noticed that he does tend to appear more in a masculine fashion, and definitely has those kind of sharper, almost reptilian or raptor-like features to his face. If that's any, I may not be doing it justice there, but that's kind of what I see usually when I'm working with him. Now I have worked with magicians who definitely say he has a bit more of a softer face, softer appear, and they actually would compare him to, I mean, it's still a bird, but they would compare him to a softer bird. Often like I think one of them said a macaw parrot. Apparently this person's never actually been around macaw parrot. Those little things can be mean as shit, but also compared it though to, smaller dogs that they find cute or cuddly or whatnot. So again, you may be getting an aspect where the entity is trying to utilize its symbolisms to also help connect to the magician. So we always got to remember that. This right here is just how the traditional Goetia described him. And let's be honest, back then they would use a lot of symbolism to describe stuff and or make things sound scarier than they were. It was kind of a tradition. There's also kind of a way to encode it too. So should not be taken literally. All right. Next, we go into the correspondence. Boon is most often viewed as the rank of Duke within the Goetia. The metal most often associated with Boon is copper. The planet most associated with Boon would be Venus. And the color most often agreed upon as associated with Boone would be green. And the element would be earth. Okay. And again, if you want to use candles or gemstones or anything, use green if you want to. You don't have to, you can use any candle you want. But if the color candle is important to you, use the color that associates with this entity, which is green. Earth element, well, if you any gemstone works, earth gemstones kind of goes together, know what I mean? Easily to do, easy peasy there. Some people like to use those. I really don't worry too much about those in my personal practice, but I understand why some people do, and it can be a lot of fun. And for some of the nicer dress rituals or special, I might bust into that area just for fun or to add a little extra oomph or presentation to it. All right, so before we move on, let's go ahead and show Boone's sigil. We'll put it up here on the screen there so you can see it. All right, there it is, Boone's sigil. All right, so that's the sigil you may want to use. That is the most common sigil most people would associate with Boone. All right, so next up we have the areas that this particular entity has been known to be helpful with. All right, now in the original Goetia, it would state that Boone gives truthful answers, part the veil between the living and dead, and gather the dead. Give riches and make one wise and well spoken. That that's actually a pretty straightforward thing, but at the same time, there's a lot of people who they put a lot of interpretation on, and it's vague enough, though direct. It is vague enough that interpretation would be needed. Now that said, though, let's look at what modern magicians have gone over and agreed upon. And yeah, I mean, through my discussions with people and magicians and colleagues, this seems to be pretty reliable areas that we can work with here. The first one, this one may not be exactly what most people want to hear, but manifest a reasonable amount of money required for a true need. Now, I put it in here in this way because a lot of people do say it this way. Okay. And I understand why they do, because a lot of people think you're going to be able to work with an entity, say, hey, make me the richest man in the land. And they're going to wake up tomorrow with a fancy bank account. Or they think that they're just magically going to win the lotto or something like that. Most often than not, it does not work that way. Prosperity magic is a lot more complicated than that. So by stating it this way, it brings it back into that rationale. I will say that when we say manifest a reasonable amount of money, that in and of its right is interpretive. And you also see the need. These two things can be extrapolated on what is a need, what is reasonable, what are those things. Really it depends on your goals, what you're doing in those things. But by and large, greed isn't a need. And that's really the thing. You got to look at that concept of greed. And just if you want a lot of money so you can take care of your family, even that's still not necessarily a true need. That's a want. That's something you want to do. Something that would be nice, but would it actually help anything? Because you got to remember, the multiverse as a whole expects us to learn and grow and develop. And that usually takes some measure of struggles and strifes and things that we have to deal with and overcome. So one of the reasons that money can be problematic is it bypasses growth in so many ways that it's one of the harder things to manifest unless you can use a process or something and understand needs and stuff that growth happens as you develop it. So it's a tricky, and that's a topic, much larger topic for another day. But yeah, he can definitely help you get you some cash. All right, next, this is one I like. Help create a large flow of wealth to a project or endeavor you are actively involved in. Here it is. Here it is. Now, this is one I put in that me and a bunch of magicians have talked about. And if you're following my wealth series here on the channel, you'll see this is very similar to something we are doing. We are building a flow of wealth on a larger scale. It's a larger project. We're not just asking for that one thing, because no matter how big it is, if you ask for any amount of money and you've got your little bound, let's say, just pick a number, this coffee cup would represent it. Well, if there's no flow, there's nothing going into the coffee cup, and we know we're going to be taken from the coffee cup, it'll go empty quick in the story. So having that flow is very, very important. And here it does say to create a large flow. And he is very good at this. I have worked with Boone quite a bit. He is one of the ones that has helped me in my financial matters and to growing the things that I am growing. He is one of the ones that is currently helping me, because I'm at that stage in life. I got to figure out what I'm going to do when me and the little lady decide to retire, and what our retirement is going to look like. I'll be honest, I'm probably still going to be doing this because I love teaching. This doesn't feel like work to me, but I need to make sure all our needs are met. I need to make sure we got the money to do what we want to do. As far as hobbies go, I need to make sure I have emergency funds, all those things. Let's be honest, I didn't exactly do a good job at taking care of myself when I was younger, so I should expect medical expenses of some kind. Just common sense, really. So, yeah, he's helping me develop that wealth and that cash flow that'll be there even when her and I finally slow down and retire. So there is that. All right, next, and this one I find a lot of fun. Allow you to sense the dead and contact a named individual you wish to connect with, and remain open to communication. Or should you connect with and remains open to communication? This is kind of important. So first off, boom, he can help you understand and sense the spirits of the dead around you. Some people like this. Some people, this just freaks them the crap out. I get that. I get that. It can be very, very creepy. Now, it does help you connect with a named individual. Also very important. You are naming an individual in which you wish to speak with. However, let us not forget the caveat. One that remains open to communication. There are entities, there are people who have passed on that they reach a point where they're not interested in dealing with the physical world. Friends, family, they don't care. And they close that door. Boone will not help you force communication. So if they are not open to communication, they won't talk in the story. He's just forced communication is not an option here. And that is one of the limitations a lot of magicians have found with this, but it's not really a limitation. It's a matter of Boone respecting the dead. And actually, Boone has been known to get relatively upset if you disrespect the dead while working with him. So take that into note. I personally can't comment. I've always worked with the dead in a respectful manner, so I've never really run across it in any manner that I could actually comment directly. I just know I've heard a lot of magicians make the comments of their stupidity and mistakes. And these are people who honestly, their research and things that they've told me in the past really has been reliable. So I don't see why I wouldn't consider what they're saying in this as a truth. So be careful with that one. All right. And lastly, Boone can aid in making wise decisions, especially on matters of finance. See, there it is again. There's that whole financial thing. And honestly, I love this one because finance is an area so few people understand these days. And having the ability to speak with Boone about moves you're going to make and things you're going to do can be really, really helpful. Though, if you do this, make sure you have truly developed your skills, because entities will answer questions truthfully, but they will also answer them in a way where you might learn lessons, and you need to be able to understand what's being said clearly, not interpret. Because I know a lot of people who their senses weren't as in tune as they thought, and they essentially bet on a sure thing that wasn't a sure thing. And the entity didn't lie to them. They lied to themselves. They heard what they wanted to hear, and that's a tricky one. So when you have these conversations, keep it in the realm of um, advice and considerations and stuff. Don't seek advice on something that is a all or nothing thing where you could lose your lose everything. So be careful with that, because the human element and fallacy, even within evocation, is a thing. And so too many magicians have forgotten that. All right, now my personal experiences with this entity, I know I've touched on. I have worked with Boone about getting truthful answers to certain questions I needed, as well as working with the dead, um, communications with loved ones. I believe Boone might actually be the first entity that helped me reach out to my father after he passed, to have a conversation with him, which was much, much needed, and I'm grateful for. Though him and I do still stay in contact through ancestor work, evocation, and things like that now too. Um, I've used Boone a time or two when it comes to a financial need. I seem to gravitate toward other entities for manifesting money. Um, though, so I mean, Boone is always in that arsenal of financial entities for me. He really is. Um, and I either already have filmed it or I'm going to film it. I can't remember. Oh, there's too many videos. But there's going to be a video in the wealth series about working with Boone for wealth because of that. And I think he's a great entity to work with, especially when we're discussing cash flow. So that is always a good one. Um, I've never had issues sensing the dead, really, so that wasn't too much. But you know, speaking with the dead, like I said, worked with him there. Um, Financial decisions. Yeah, I've had a few conversations with him about financial decisions. I have always took his advice and then done my own research to back it up. A time or two, the advice didn't pan out. And when I talked to him, yeah, it was more my hope over was piling onto something that I wasn't hearing. Luckily, as he put it, luckily, when he said it, my distrust of others drove me to research further to get where I got. So maybe he knew what he was doing, maybe he didn't. Either way, the information didn't pan out. But he was right. He was right. He got what I heard was the answer I was hoping for, and you got to be careful of that. Even an experienced magician's emotions and hope can taint the discussion from time to time. But more often than not, in truth, he's always steered me in a very good directions. And I'm grateful for his advice. I really am. And that's the thing with advice. Advice is advice. What you do with it is what matters more than anything. And good advice can still be used incorrectly. So just because someone advises it, don't mean it's going to work exactly right for you, because you are still a human element and you can still screw it up. So we always got to be mindful of our actions, what we're doing, the pathways we're taking, and how we're doing it. Okay. But I always do value his wise counsel in those matters. So that's pretty much my experience with this particular entity. Um, oh, wait, crap. We almost forgot, didn't we? The un. Y'all love to hear me say the un. So let's go ahead and, before we close out this video, we'll get the un in there. I knew I said that Glossolavios's un was tricky for me. This one may be trying to take the trophy. It really might. All right, here we go. Welik Melon Avaz Bun Tasa. And we'll make sure that's up here because I do not think I'm doing this one right. Welak Malon Avaz Bun Tasa. Walak Malon Avaz Bun Tasa. Walak Malon Avaz Bun Tasa. Okay, that's how I usually utilize this one. I will be honest, this is an un I don't use. I've used this a time or two when working with uns to test. This is one I don't like. I don't like it. I would rather just write my own and do my own thing. Seriously, just total candor there. I'm just gonna this ain't one I use, but this is also the most common one. So different strokes for different folks, right? And you may ask, well, what un do you use? I actually don't for Boone. I do not. I use a base evocation with no un when working with Boone. So I don't have un to give to say I don't like this one, so I use this one. And I felt it would be more, it would taste a lie if I was to go and search one out I like and say this is the one I use or the one I would use, because that's not the truth. The truth is I just don't use one for Boone. So there's just truth and candor right there for you. All right. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I would highly recommend you reach out to Boone. Like I said, I've always enjoyed my time with Boone. Um, though I will admit, there more often than not these days, our interactions are further apart, which is kind of sad thinking about it. I might have to reach out and just say hello to him. But yeah, definitely reach out. It definitely can be helpful, especially if you're dealing with financial matters for sure. And if you've enjoyed this video or it made you laugh, hit that like button. It helps out the channel more than you know. And I appreciate every one of my viewers and all that you all do for us. If you would like to support the channel, we do have channel memberships down below. There's also a Patreon if you prefer that. Each tier has special perks attached to it. Um, so if you consider supporting us, it helps keep the lights on. And honestly, our goal is to get to the point where we don't have to worry about the ad revenue no more, and we can shut that off, and that would allow us the freedom and ability to do a lot more with the channel. Everybody's got to have goals, right? So that's our goal. All right, everyone, I hope you have a wonderful week, and until next time, I'm Drake. This has been Working Dragon Mystic. Take care. Bye-bye.